Hello and welcome to this week's episode of #Leadership What's on Your Mind. Remember, we're a podcast to make you stop and think about your leadership journey, adding value by speaking to amazing people with amazing stories and experts in their field. So today we are speaking to Di. How are you doing, Di? Are you okay?
Yeah, very well. Thanks, Stuart. Thanks for inviting me on.
That's fine. I'm really excited about this one. And I can't believe we've got to the mid-60s in the episodes and we've not talked about this topic yet. So I know Di from being quite scarily close to where I grew up. And we're doing about human factors today. So I delivered human factors in the military, and Di is very much involved in that outside, which you'll hear a little bit more about in a second. And it's just so relevant to leadership, so relevant to think about it in the corporate world and lots of different areas. So as I hit the 20-minute timer, Di, if you could introduce yourself for the people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll get going.
Okay, excellent. Well, Di Worby, I work for Global Air Training, and I've been in the aviation industry for around 36 years, which when Stuart said we're in the 60s with the episode, he wasn't referring to years, but probably not too long to go. But I've had different roles, which probably for a majority of the time have included training, management and leadership. So I'm involved at Global in the development and delivery of our human factor training in both aviation, but also in other safety critical industries such as healthcare, oil and gas, nuclear, emergency services. Our core is aviation. We've got a background in aviation, pretty much all of the staff that work here. But 11 or 12 years ago, we moved into different industries because we found that human factors was relevant to just about everybody. So that's awesome. My background.
Yeah, we're going to go into a little bit more about we're going to do a lot about human factors in a second, but staying with yourself, obviously we're #Leadership What's on Your Mind. What do you think of? What comes to your mind when you hear the word leadership?
I would say, to me, leadership is about having followers. So you can't lead without anybody to follow. And it's about taking those followers to achieve a common goal and being able to motivate them and encourage people and to direct them and support them to be the best that they can be, and to work together to meet that goal. So awesome. That's what it means to me in a nutshell.
Yeah, good. I like that. So staying with you personally, whether it's on reflection or whether there was a light bulb moment at the time, where do you think your leadership journey started? How far back are we going?
We're going back quite a long time, probably since I started work. I wasn't a leader when I started work at all. I was a follower for sure. In fact, we probably all still follow in some capacity to the present day. But my leadership journey started in my 20s. I had a role at work where I was a senior crew member. So I had, in a way, leadership responsibilities there. I also, in my private life, was a hill walking and mountain leader. So again, there was a certain element of leadership in that, getting people up and down hills and safely. But I believe that my leadership journey really began in my 30s when I became the safety training manager for a large UK airline, and I looked after a team of trainers there. During that time, it was great. I really enjoyed it. The role I had was very enjoyable. The team I worked with was super. But I never really felt 100% fulfilled that I could get the best out of the team or the best out of myself because of various, lack of resources in the airline at the time and other people's views to take into consideration within. I was part of a larger management team. So not everybody wanted to do it my way, and which is quite understandable and quite rightly so. But I had this aspiration to do my own thing, to run my own business, which I'd had for many years. So I'd been with the airline about 10 years, and then I was waiting for the opportunity to arise where I would leap and go and start my own business, but that never happened. The opportunity didn't come knocking at the door. I had to actually go and get it. Yeah. And I realized that whilst working for the airline, I had an accident on a horse, which was quite serious. It gave me some significant life-threatening injuries and put me on life support for a while. So while I had the downtime of recovery, I was thinking about really, I was lucky to have kept my life, and I was looking at where I should go from there, and started to think more about starting my own business. So it was during that period I was sort of planning for the future. And as I say, realized that opportunity wasn't going to knock at my door. I had to knock at its door and get out there and start it. So I stayed with the airline until the following year, and then I left and began Global Air Training. And
Excellent.
that then is where my leadership journey evolved much further. And it expanded considerably as we took on members of staff. And it's been very fulfilling now, because I look at the leadership journey I've got at the moment as sort of 3 phases, and it's almost like the scan of an aircraft. When you're flying, you're looking constantly at the aircraft itself, what it's doing, the path it's going, and you're constantly monitoring the instruments. And I like to do that with the company. So I look at the company, the path, and the people. So that's my little sort of mantra. What's the company doing? Where can we take it? Is it on direction? And what are the people doing? And are they in keeping up with the direction? So it's
awesome. I love that reference to an aircraft and how relevant.
Yeah.
That shouldn't surprise me.
Well, there was an accident some years ago, and I remember the captain. It was before I started Global. The captain said he kept a constant scan going of the plane, the path, and the people. And I thought that is such a good thing, to keep the direction going in the right way, and to keep on top of it. So instead of the plane, the path, the people, I look at the company, the path, the people. So what are we doing? Where are we going with it? Are we in the right direction? And what are the people doing?
Yeah, amazing. And what you just explained then goes into a lot of things we talk about self-leadership, like you had to lead yourself to then out of that to create that environment of your own business that then you now lead others. So fantastic. So human factors. I said I delivered a lot of human factors training in the military. I think it crosses over really well to the management and leadership training we did in the Outward Bounds. But what, for the people who've never heard the term human factors, just tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, so human factors, what is it? It's basically a life skill at the end of the day. And human factors examines the relationship human to human, and also not just the human to human, but it's who and what we interact with. So it would be my relationship with our clients, the people I work with, people in the organization. It would be how I interact with the software and the hardware that we utilize, and the environment in which we work. So from day to day, things are different. So I might come to work well rested one day, with a good capacity to deal with things, and I might have a very easy day. A following day or a following week, I might have some troubles, some stresses, not slept well. So I've got fatigue, high workload, and then I might have some difficulties, a similar kind of difficulty to deal with, and my choice might not be the same as it would have been when I was well rested, not fatigued, had a good work support around me. So it's looking at all the factors that can impact on a human and affect our performance at the end of the day. And human factor training is all about focusing on improving safety and efficiency by minimizing errors, improving productivity, and at the end of the day, people will feel more motivated and have a greater job satisfaction. We deliver human factor training in a lot of safety critical industries. So there we're looking at improving safety, not just efficiency and productivity, but making sure people are safe and that we can minimize the errors that people make. But you can also deliver this, and we also do deliver this to non-safety critical. So people who just want a better performing team. And you'll know from your human factor training in the military, it's all about people working in a better manner and understanding what can impact on you. So it might be, it's huge, it's quite a vast topic, but just to name a few of the key aspects would be effective communication, how we talk to each other, understanding the barriers to communication, and how we can be ensure that there's no ambiguity, that we're all speaking the same common language, and that we have fully, a full understanding. So if somebody says, right, are you ready? Are you ready for what? Are we all on the same page here before we flick the vital switch? Having good situational awareness. So with situational awareness, we're looking at what's going on now, what's going on around us, and also projecting to what's going to happen in the future. Being able to problem solve and make effective decisions. And within this, we look at what can help people make decisions, understanding the decision-making process, and also why people make rash decisions, whether we're using a jumping to conclusions or an analytical decision-making process, and teamwork. And that's to name but a few. I mean, it also includes the way we feel, sort of physiologically. Are we stressed? Are we suffering from fatigue? Because all these can affect the decision making, which can then affect our workload, our teamwork. And each one is intrinsically linked. They're not standalone topics. And sometimes people say, oh, I want you to deliver a human factors course for us. Could you come and deliver it this morning, on a particular morning? And I say, okay, how long have we got? And I say, well, maybe 2 hours. And 2 hours isn't going to do it, because you need to understand. We can tell you the basics and we can tell you what it's about, but you need a day at least to really get to know what the elements are, and a couple of days would be better, because then we can tell people what the elements are and we can demonstrate it with case studies. And we found that to be very effective, to look at real life situations, why things went wrong, what the causal factors, and not just the causal factors, but the contributing factors. So particularly in aviation, which is our core business, we're looking at aircraft accidents a lot. And it's, why does it happen? Why does it continue to happen? And sometimes it's organizational, and sometimes it's things that have happened that are latent in the system that don't manifest themselves until the day, and the crew happen to be the last people to be able to deal with it. So we look at a root cause analysis of what goes wrong and why, but so often it's the human element that has made the mistake or the error. And sometimes it's a very basic fundamental mistake, and you think, crikey, how could professional aircrew do something so stupid? And actually, it's not that they did something stupid, it's that they were led down a track without realizing, without being able to say, oh, hang on a minute, we've got a red flag here, let's stop and sort it out before we carry on. Because there might be a number of red flags that have been starting to raise up, and if you don't notice all of them, you might just notice one, but that could be the link that breaks the chain of events that stops the accident from happening. So what we're looking for in human factor training is knowing what can affect us perform. It's also looking at threats and errors and how we manage them as well. And all together as a package, it just makes life so much safer, so much more effective. It makes the team work better, understand each other better. And we as a company put all of our team, it's habit. We put all of our team, admin, as well as the aircrew trainers, they've already been through the training, but we put everybody through human factor training. And it doesn't matter what role they have, they've all been through it. And sometimes it can be the admin team that come in. And I remember one of our team coming into me with an email and saying, I've got this email from you and I've got a bit of ambiguity here. I don't know whether you mean this or that. And she said, I think we might have an error chain beginning. It made me laugh. And I thought, well, we're not going to crash an aircraft in the office and lose a lot of life, but we might lose a customer because somebody misunderstood. So it really is it's a life skill, and it can help you with so much. So I'm so passionate about it.
And do you know what? I remember you mentioned about the case studies, and I know we haven't got long. I don't know whether there is a one you can sort of tell us about that's quite quick and simple. But I remember sitting in that classroom. I always say this about human factors. When you're sat in the classroom and you're delivering and you're learning and you're talking about human factors, and you mentioned the words silly or stupid, you do sometimes think, like, how did this possibly happen?
Yeah.
And there's some horrific case studies out there of when you're just reading it as a situation in a nice environment, how could that possibly have happened? But it is human error. You alluded to everybody's different factors leading up to certain things, and I've got a couple of examples that are used in the military. But have you got anything to sort of bring that to life about how it kind of, you can say that the contributing factors that you would think, how did that possibly happen? But it does, doesn't it, on a regular basis?
Yeah. Well, so many case studies. It's thinking of one that quickly. Yeah. I suppose there's one that we use quite a lot, which is very easy to understand. It's not technical, and it happened to the New Mexico State Police. It's out in the public domain. It's case studies are out there, videos are out there on it. And it's a helicopter that crashed in Santa Fe, and it was a police helicopter, and it was a chief pilot flying it. He was very competent. He was ex-military. He'd won awards for bravery, and he went to do a search and rescue mission. Initially, he turned it down because of the bad weather, and then he went home and came back into work again and took off to go and look for a hiker who was lost on the hill. And it was in mountainous terrain. And eventually, cutting a long story short, he landed on the top of the mountain, and he went down himself to pick up the hiker. So he walked for an hour in adverse conditions, wearing just a lightweight flying suit. He carried her back because she was weak. So he carried her back up the mountain, put her in the helicopter. By that time, it was late at night. It was there was a lot of precipitation. I don't know if it was snow or sleet or rain, but there was precipitation, and it was in cloud. He took off from the mountain. He was only 15 minutes from base. So 15 minutes, it's a bit like a magnet. He could have stayed on top of the mountain in the helicopter, in the dry, safe. The hiker wasn't injured, so they could have stayed there. But just 15 minutes away was home, base, his bed, warm comfort. So he chose to take off. And unfortunately, his flight was 3 minutes long before he collided with the mountain because it was in cloud. So they were killed. There was a spotter in the back who was taken up to look for the hiker. Yeah. He was the only one that survived, but the hiker herself and the pilot both were killed. When you look at the accident, it's not just as simple as he took off when he could perhaps have stayed there. There's a whole series of events. He was tired and fatigued. He'd worked all day. He'd gone home. He'd come back. The 2 previous nights before, he'd been called by the company in the early hours of the morning on numerous occasions to deal with issues, because not only was he the chief pilot, he was the PR guy for the police. He had a desk job as well as a flying job, and his workload was sky high. So he was tired, he was fatigued, he was under pressure to pick up a hiker because he thought she was lost and going to spend a night alone in the mountains. He could have sent the spotter to carry the lady back, but he didn't. He went himself. And when you look back at his military records, he was described as a little bit of gung-ho and a little bit of, he was there to meet the challenge and, to get the job done. So that could have played a part in it. And when you actually strip it back, there are so many contributing factors. The police themselves, the person who'd been in charge before, had sacked the previous chief pilot because he didn't send some people on a mission that he decided was too risky for them. Yeah. So again, he's now in a role where the previous chief pilot had been taken off duty because he didn't do the job. So there were just so many pressures and so many links to this chain.
Yeah, and suppose what we're saying then with training, what changes? Like they change that you put. Am I right in saying that you would put processes in place? You'd improve communication, you improve awareness, and that's what the human factors training gives an organisation and make sure these don't happen again.
Well, that's right. And the other thing was he deviated from procedures. He wasn't actually licensed to fly that high. He shouldn't have gone over, I can't remember, 10,000 feet or something. He went up to 11,000. And he wasn't rated for cloud flying in the helicopter. Right. So he deviated from his license qualifications and from the standard operating procedures. So, you know, we shouldn't deviate from procedures.
Awesome.
We should recognize the fatigue, etc. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly see if I can get in the one we use in the military just to bring it to life, that this is a benefit. Is that I'll simplify it for the audience. Is that there's certain units that are dotted around the UK that deal with live firing and quite serious procedures. And what was happening a long time ago, there was near misses, and they were just, because it was deemed to be a negative, that they would just kept it in-house and they weren't talking about it. And obviously then when you bring human factors in, they started talking about it, and what they realized was all the other units were having the same near misses. So it was nothing to be ashamed of. It was the fact that there was obviously a need for training, there was a need for changing procedures, there was obviously something bigger than just humans in the chain, and there was a reason why that was happening, and it all transformed procedures, processes, training, and these near misses greatly reduced. So it kind of, human factors opens up and brings so much to the table that can help people and organizations.
Yeah, I think also you need to, once you've done your human factor training, you need to revisit it. And a good analogy of that is for those people who have been on a speed awareness course. I haven't, by the way, but for those that have, if you ask them, how did you drive after you've been on your speed awareness course? And they say, oh, we did 30 and a 30 and we never went over. And, you know, they're very, very good. And you say, okay, well, how long ago was that? Or was it like I had my awareness course a month or two ago? And then you ask them again in a year's time, how fast do you go through a 30? Do you ever speed? Well, just sometimes, yeah. You know, and all of a sudden you kind of, you know, drift off. And the repetitive, which in aviation we have it mandated that we have to revisit every year, and then that means that it just tops us up and it keeps us sharp and keeps us remembering.
Awesome. So Di, that is our 20 minutes.
Wow.
It absolutely flies by. Thank you so much for bringing your insights into human factors. It's something that I'm really passionate about talking about, and I can't believe, like I said at the start, that we haven't talked about it on the podcast. So it was a no-brainer to get you on. So thank you so much. So guys, if you really enjoyed that, make sure you hit the comments below. I'd really like to hear what your takeaways from this are. If you're listening to us on your podcast provider, make sure you hit us a follow and pass us forwards. And then if you're watching us on the YouTube channel, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the bell, and every Wednesday at 6 a.m. we have another amazing guest bringing their thoughts, stories, and perspectives on leadership. So Di, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Stuart, again for inviting me on.
Yeah, and I'll be coming down very soon for a catch up and a cup of tea.
Look forward to it.
So guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.